Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and following a slightly weird release setup featuring a local release of the song and then an international release a few hours later, all of which I think I may have slept through, Australia presented their song for Eurovision this year. It's so great to have them still be in the contest. My stance has always been the more the merrier, and Australia as a nation has proven on several occasions and in several different ways that they do very much deserve the privilege of being allowed to compete, even if they have been relegated to being semi-finalists this year. But that shouldn't prove too much trouble for them and their representative, the brilliant Dami and her song The Sound of Silence, which is in English, doesn't need any translating on my part. I do wonder, if Australia are allowed to continue to compete in the contest, which, I mean, let's face it, they're going to, will they ever send a song that's not in English? But then again, that's rich coming from me, the UK. We only ever sing in English, despite the fact that, I mean, we've got Welsh, we've got Scots Gaelic, we've got Cornish, Manx, all these other languages we never use, so, something, throwing stones, glass houses. So what are my initial thoughts about this song then? Well, from the initial teaser that Dami posted shortly before the song was released, I was expecting something huge and impressive from Australia to prove to Europe that they do mean business and to especially reconfirm that they do deserve to be here. And when the full song was released, well, they mostly delivered on that. This is a great song, no doubt about it, but there's definitely some room for improvement in there. Not that the song in its current state isn't good enough, though. Without repeating points I haven't made yet, I do feel very positive about this song. There are just a few points that make me hesitate, but we'll get to those when we get to those. Before that, what does this song do right? Well, you can tell that this song was written, produced, and performed by a very professional team, led by Dami herself, of course. It's all very, very well put together, and, as is the case with Australia's track record and just general approach to Eurovision, even if you include 2014, where they didn't compete, but they still sent a song, it sounds like it's been plucked straight from the top 10 charts, which already as good as guarantees it points from the UK and possibly Ireland as well, given that we all vote in the same semi-final, conveniently enough. As for its international appeal, well, given the genre and the masterful delivery and the brilliant artist responsible for it, I can only assume that it'll do well in other countries' rankings too, not least helped by the hype of it being Australia, of course. That isn't a political statement, by the way. That's just an observation that the EBU wants us to believe that this is a temporary thing, even though they're not fooling anyone. I did like a flash poll in one of my live streams asking people, do you seriously believe that they're going to kick Australia out of the contest? And everyone's like, no, Australia are quite clearly a permanent member of the contest, even though the EBU is like, oh, no, we just invited them back for a second year because, temporary special thing. Like, no. You've got them in as permanent members and you're not fooling anyone. So yeah, Australia may as well be considered a permanent contestant at this point, but because it's officially a temporary thing, some people might be attracted to vote for the song just so they can hear the "thanks for voting for Australia" message through their voting platform of choice, which, I mean, some countries have the app, so that might just be Dami saying, hi, thanks for voting for me, which I think is nice. But yeah, some people might just vote for them so they can hear that, and that might sound like a really dumb excuse for voting for the song, but it worked on me last year. Ditto for the Czech Republic, actually. But all that aside, judging by the story and execution of the song, they probably have big plans for how to stage this one live, and it is sure to impress. And Dami has experience with this kind of thing, you know. She represented Australia in the 2014 ABU TV Song Festival with the song Living Dangerously, so you can't say she hasn't had some sort of rehearsal or preparation for this sort of thing. She's no stranger to performing live and, I would say competitively, but the ABU TV Song Festival is the non-competitive one, and the ABU Radio Song Festival isn't competitive anymore either, so she's competed in theory, but without an actual result at the end of it. She knows what she's doing, basically. She's no stranger to this kind of setup. But this song has bad points as well, so we should consider those, you know, the whole spiel that I usually rattle off when I get to this point in the review. The biggest problem that I have with this song is the refrain. I'm just gonna throw that out there. It's 2 layers of repetitive. It's repetitive squared. Before I heard this song, I thought the title, Sound of Silence, sounded rather poetic and nice and clever and slightly coincidental that it happens to have 2 words of the 3 in common with Romania's song, but that was a coincidence. But now, I'm sick of hearing that combination of words. My exact frustration is this. The refrain consists of 3 lines, as far as I'd transcribe it, the second and third of which are identical, and all 3 of which end with the title of the song. And it gets very old, very quickly, given that she sings it a lot throughout the song. It almost felt like they wrote the verses first, and then they kind of ran out of inspiration for the refrain. Like, they wrote the verses, had like a couple of ideas for the refrain, wrote the second verse, then the bridge and whatever. And they're like, okay, right, how do we write a chorus? Oh wait, we've got no time left, we need to hastily write a thing, and they just ended up with this. And so it kind of feels like they wrote half a refrain and then just doubled it to fill time because they ran out of ideas. Seriously, how hard would it have been to just have a little variation in the lyrics, just change a little bit? Sincerely, repetitious or not, that isn't even how I'd handle the chorus of the song, but hey, I'm not a professional, so clearly I'm not the one to ask about how to write a refrain, even though I'd like to think of myself as a lyricist, but now's not the time. And speaking of the lyrics, there's one right at the beginning that mentions FaceTime by name. I don't know how the EBU let that one slide, but it's product placement. If Valentina couldn't sing about Facebook in 2012, and Lotte Engberg couldn't sing about Coca-Cola in 1987, then this needs a rewrite as well. But that's good, maybe it'll inspire Dami's team to work on the refrain while they're at it. Just a tweak, that's all I'm asking, just a little tweak, just a bit of variety. The only other slight reservation I have with this is, sure, the story of the song sounds poetic and emotional and stuff, but when you get right down to it, isn't it just someone singing about how it sucks to be in a long-distance relationship and getting a bit needy as a consequence? I mean, there are worse things to sing about, of course, and I'm not saying it's an invalid thing to sing about, it's just, it sounds poetic, but then you think about it and it's not quite as poetic as first impressions would suggest. But that's not a huge, like, the only real valid criticism here is you can't sing about FaceTime and the refrain is horribly repetitive. Those are the actual criticisms here. How would I rate it out of 10? Well, despite that whole rant that I just went on, there's a lot that this song does right, and there's a lot that I like about it. Nevertheless, I want to like it more than I do. It's impressive, and it promises a lot of great things for when it hits the stage, which I know Dami is capable of delivering for certain. So overall, it's a 9 out of 10 from me. Its repetitious nature quite firmly barricades 10 out of 10 territory for this song. It's not a 10, it can't be, not with this level of repetition. But it's definitely better than 8 out of 10. It's definitely more than above average. Perhaps her live performance can convince me to overlook just how many times she says the title of the song throughout, but for now, the song isn't quite as good as I'd hoped, but it is still very good. So having said that, what is it like compared to last year? Well, comparing Sound of Silence with Tonight Again is no easy task. They're two very different songs. True, they both entertain, they both work very well with a live staging, and they both sound like they work equally well both at Eurovision and in the charts, but the genres are so very different that it's hard to say that one is distinctly better than the other. Overall, I think Tonight Again is probably the better Eurovision song because it felt more engaging, and it managed to be a tongue-in-cheek reference to Australia's position at Eurovision without even remotely being a joke entry. If it hadn't placed so highly, I might have reconsidered this decision to say that it was better, but when it comes down to it, much as I like Dami Im's song, and I do still think it's a strong and valid contender, and Australia are still great at Eurovision and fully deserve to continue participating, Sound of Silence is just too repetitive compared to Tonight Again. It'll still do really well this year though, and deservedly so. It just needs a little work doing to it, that's all. I mean, the best comparison that I have is it's like they sent diamonds last year and gold this year. They're both really valuable, and you wouldn't say no to either because they're both very nice things to have. It's just that diamonds are slightly more valuable, I think, pound for pound. So, it's still good, but Tonight Again didn't make the same mistakes this one does. That's kind of how I'm feeling at the moment, but my opinion might change. These reviews are all subject to change the more I hear the songs. So will it qualify? There isn't a doubt in my mind that of course it will qualify. Despite its repetitive nature, it's of the genre that will impress the juries, sung by a singer who is known to be able to perform really well live. So yeah, she'll tick all the right boxes with that half of the votes, and then between the hype of representing Australia and the hype of singing a song of this genre with this kind of power and the staging she's bound to have and so on, she'll impress a lot of the public too. I don't believe for a second that Australia will miss the final this year, or the final top 10 for that matter. I'd be surprised if this finishes higher than Guy Sebastian did, but that's mostly because there's a lot of strong competition this year, and repeating the title over and over and over again might be this song's undoing if it isn't addressed. But overall, it's very well executed, and it'll bring them an enviable result. I'm just not entirely convinced that it'll win compared to some of the other songs this year that, as I said, don't make quite the same mistakes. But it's certainly a really good foundation to build upon if they do adjust the lyrics. And they are going to have to adjust the lyrics to at least get rid of the FaceTime reference, so I've got my fingers crossed that they adjust the refrain a little bit as well, but for the moment, as I said, it's still a strong base to start upon. So, I would say, good luck Australia. Here's hoping that the EBU really are just going to keep you in the contest permanently, because you certainly deserve to, and, well, I hope to see you again next year, but for the moment, we'll see you in Stockholm and see just how far you can go with this one.